What? Can you tell me your full name?
John Peter Klein.
And your date of birth?
See?
Date of birth.
January 9, 1914.
So how old were you? Are you?
How old am I now?
Yep.
You're going to be
92.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you where were you born?
Well, them days they used to say Mercer County, North Dakota. I could go to the description of the land, but they usually didn't do that them days. Now they kind of do. I can give you that if you think your teacher's interested. I was born on Section 12, the southwest quarter of Section 12, range, Township 142, range 89. That puts you right on the spot.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 3 sisters and 3 brothers.
And you
There were 7 of us.
older or younger than you?
See.
Older or younger? Older or younger?
Whoa.
They're all older except Frank.
All are older except Frank. He's younger.
Okay.
That's these 5 of them are older.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about each one of them? Tell me a little bit about each one of them.
You'll be the middle person.
What?
You get what.
Tell me a little bit about your brothers and sisters.
Tell her a little bit about brothers and sisters.
Well, we lived together on the farm out there till 1924, and then Fred. No, let's go back a little bit. Marion lived out there till about 1918,
What about Sebastian?
and then she went to Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
And Rose lived there till about in 1916. She left for Buffalo, New York, and they never came back to live again. And Fred left in 1924 for Buffalo, and he came back he left in the fall of 23, came back in 24. And then he stayed home till in 1927. Then he went to Buffalo again and stayed till 1929. Then he came back and stayed till 1933. And then he left for Buffalo again and never came back again to live in North Dakota. On a visit or 2, yeah. Did you register it? Yeah. Doesn't sound very interesting.
Where was your mom and dad born?
They were born in what they call the province, here they call it a state. They call it Banat, Hungary. And the Dorf, my mother was born in Königshof, and my dad was born in Engelsbrunn. They weren't far apart, like 2 or 3 miles, you know. And Dad was born in 72, on the 5th of January, and my mother was born on the 22nd of January in 76.
Okay. When did you come with them to the United States, or were you born here? Were you born in the United States?
Were you born in the United States?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was born in Mercer County. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Fred was born, and those 2 older girls were born, and Anna was born in the United States too, in Hebron, in 7, on the 20th of September 1907.
So when did your parents come here to the United States?
When did my parents? In wait a minute. My dad came over in 1904 alone, and he stayed here till 1906, and then he went back and got the family, and he came over and arrived here on the 15th of February in 1907. Yeah.
Okay. So you lived on the farm then?
Yeah,
when they came?
no, not right away.
Okay.
They lived in Hebron. My dad worked in the blacksmith shop until 1910 in the spring. Then they moved. Then they took out this homestead, and they moved out there in the spring of 1910, and that's where they lived until they passed away on that place there, on the homestead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Mhm. So you. Let's go back to that. So you had an older brother that did he die? Sebastian?
Yeah, he passed away as a baby out in Europe,
Yeah.
in Klein, so. Yeah, he was only 2 or 3 months old. They say there must have been something wrong inside. They say he cried all the time. In fact, he screamed. He must have had something twisted inside, you know,
Well, maybe.
interiorly. I don't know when this one was taken. I never found no date, but it could have been when they lived in Hebron that time. They look kind of youngish yet, you know. And between 1907 and 1910 somewhere, I would say.
These are your parents?
Yeah, yes. Those were your parents.
Yeah, dad and mom. I would say that's when this picture was taken, between 1907 and 1910.
And what's these pictures about?
Here's, my dad was born in this village here, Königs, Engelsbrunn.
Okay. And
He's watching TV.
Oh, good, interested in that.
She put a
For kids, yeah,
yeah.
kind of, for Saturdays.
United, is
so
this
to keep,
this
keep the kids
is this when they got citizenship then?
free.
Is this their citizenship papers?
your citizenship.
Is this from
1913, my
yeah,
dad's
citizenship?
yeah. He had some witnesses there, I see.
That's
Tony Martin and Peter Railing. I didn't know either one of them.
Hmm.
Of course, I was 1 year before I was born, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, he became a citizen in 1913. That's a map of our township here.
That isn't.
Yeah.
That isn't.
I wonder where she got a hold of this
Hmm.
out of my atlas. Oh, you mean computer too? With that?
yep.
They made them pictures here, them maps in 1918. They come around and sold us a book. I still got it. Looks like the Dickens got, was caught in the rain and leaked the roof. And they came around in 1913, and the folks bought one, $15, you know. Yeah. And that's the township we lived in.
Yep.
Fischbach.
Yeah, my grandfather was a day laborer. He worked for others, and my uncle, my mom had an uncle, my grandpa's brother. His name was Joe, and he operated differently. He had some land. Grandpa never had any. He had a house, and that's it. And Uncle Joe, he had land, and he had a house, and he farmed, and he also rented land and rented again to others for profit, you know. Let's say he rented for, there they done it different. They shared the stuff that was grown. Here, years ago, they'd give the quarter bushel, the renter would give the quarter bushel of wheat and grain, barley and oats, to the owner. And out in the old country, it was in reverse. The renter kept 1 quarter and the landlord took 3. What a deal. Yeah. So that's how they operated out there.
What about this picture? Who's in this picture?
And this was taken in 1916 here. Fred at Casper's studio in Hebron. I was 2 years old, Anna was 7. Oh, wait a minute. Anna was born. Anna was 9. And Rose was 16. She was 18. Fred was 16, and Marion was 96, 4, and 6, 20 years old.
How can you remember everything?
Well,
He's got such a good memory.
Yeah.
now if you go far back, yeah. Ask me something from 75, 80 years ago that I've seen or heard. I remember it, but I can't remember sometimes.
And you can't remember if I said go downstairs and
Yeah.
bring something up.
Yeah.
You don't remember what it was.
What happened very recently just goes one ear out the other, I guess.
Yeah, that's sure as
So,
Tony Taylor.
did you go?
Tony Fred Klein.
Who is that?
Tony Taylor and Fred Klein.
Did you
Oh,
go to?
He boarded there when he was in Buffalo.
Did
that
you?
was his cousin, you know, and Anna there was his aunt, yeah. She was my dad's sister.
Did you go to school? Did you start out going to school like they do now? How did you go? When did you go to school?
When? In Mercer County, about a 3/4 mile from our house. I started there in 1919, and I went to school there till in 24, then in the fall of 1925, my parents moved to Hebron again, and I went to school in Hebron. That term 25 and 26, and again the next year 26 and 27. And then we moved back out on the farm again. My brother got divorced, and he quit the farm, so we went back out again. Then I went 2 more terms on the farm. Then I was finished, highly educated.
What grade would that be? Do you know? Is there a grade level on that? Your schooling?
Hey,
What grade level? Like, were you at 8th grade, 9th grade?
What
6th
grade were you in school?
from the 1st to the 8th. That's all I got. Yeah. I went first, 1919. No, in 1919 I just was there. It was long. The weather was nice. And then the next year I was in 1st grade. They want the names of the teachers.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, my first teacher was Dan McArlen. He was a cowboy, a rancher. He came up with traps on horseback every day. He lived 3 miles west, and a big hat on, and his Winchester rifles in that.
He carried a gun to school?
Yeah. He come to gun. He shot coyotes as a supplement to his salary, you know. Then the 2nd year I was in 1st, my teacher was Gertrude Hauser. She was a rancher's daughter. And then the 3rd year, we had a teacher by the name of C. He never wrote his first name out. It was always C. Lindstrom. He was an older man, about 60. That was my best teacher. Yeah. And then the next year we had the Gunhill Johnson. She was from close to Grand Forks, but Thompson, North Dakota. And from our next teacher was a rancher's daughter, Margaret Smith. She also came horseback, but not every day. She boarded at the Unruhs, and she went home on the weekends, rode home, and on Monday morning she rode to school again. That was in 23 and 24. And then in 24 and 25, I had a teacher by the name of Rose Getz, Goetz. She was from Hazen. And then, of course, a year after that, I went to town school. And my teacher in town school was Lucille Sorber. She was from Dickinson. And the next year, I had a teacher by the name of Frances Farr. She was from New Rockford. And then the last year I had a teacher by the name of Hildegard Strasberg. She was a minister's daughter. She was from Hebron. Yeah. Then, poof, done. Yeah.
How was your schooling like? Was it a one-room schoolhouse?
One-room schoolhouse, yeah. Yeah. One room. Hello.
What did you have? What did you do at the start of school to the end of school on a normal day in school?
What I done? Everything, arithmetic, reading, and spelling, and grammar, and history, and what else was
Did you have any
it? Reading, writing, arithmetic.
playtime? Did you go outside in recess? What they call recess playtime?
Oh, but recess.
Did you have
We
a
went outside and played if the weather was favorable. We had big rocks around that schoolhouse, and we could hide behind it. We played hide and go stick, and we played Andy over, and we played last couple out. And what else did we do? Oh, in cold weather we played I Spy inside, you know, and that's about. And we took our lunch to school, and at noon we ate our lunch, you know. Oftentimes the milk or water was frozen solid. That schoolhouse had a 12-foot ceiling. Never got warm there till noon. In the morning your feet were cold as ice, but in the afternoon it was comfortable. It took that long for the heat to come down to the floor, you know. Yeah. That's were my best days when I went to school. Things after that, things got kind of hard. I had to start working. Yeah.
Was your school, was it just the teacher taught you, or did the older kids help you too?
Did the teacher teach you, or did you hear from the kids?
No, the teacher. Oh, what you want to have? The first year the school opened, we had 22 students, pupils. The second year there might have been one or two less. And then by the end, there were always less. By the end, I think there was only maybe 7 or 8. So the teacher could, you know, teach you. She right on, how do you say? She didn't have many to swivel, so she could attend you pretty good, you know. Yeah. I remember.
Did you get lickings at school?
Yeah.
Did you get lickings?
Once from the first teacher, Dan McArlen. He hit me with a ruler on the hell. It hurt. I cried. Yeah. Other than that, I can't remember ever getting whipped from the teacher.
You didn't have to stand in the corner or anything? You didn't have to stand in a corner of the classroom or anything?
I can't remember that either, but I do remember some of the other ones did. They had to stand in the corner. Yeah. I wasn't mean. Frank was more unruly in school. He got into more trouble. I remember one time he threw dough at the teacher. I don't know where he got that. Well, he got punished for that. That was Johnson, the Gunnell Johnson. He didn't, wasn't interested in stuff, in school stuff. I took more interest in my lessons.
Yeah. What was your favorite subject, your favorite?
Arithmetic, yeah. Grammar was my poorest, yeah. Adjectives, nouns, verbs, adverbs, and what have you, there's more, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't get that stuff in my head. I wasn't so bad in history either, and geography and spelling, I was pretty good at that too. Yeah. But grammar, I must have been the dumbest one in the room.
Were there a lot of girls in your class? Were there girls in the classroom?
Were there girls in the classroom?
Oh, yeah.
Or mainly just...
At first there were about as many girls as there were boys, yeah. Oh, I could name them all yet. Yeah. Should I?
Okay.
Okay, to begin with, there was Fred Weber. He was the oldest. Then there was John Unruh. Then there was Ed Fisher. Then there was Mary Harsh. Then there was Elizabeth Harsh. Then there was Bill Harsh. Then there was Jake Harsh. Then there was Gottlieb Harsh. Then there was Esther Fisher. And then there was Clara Fisher. And then there was Anna Shirley. And there was Otto Shirley. And then there was August Shirley. Then there was Dave Vageley. And then there was, what was the second one's name? Gottlieb Vageley. And there was John Klein.
Yep.
Anna Klein.
Yep.
And Frank Klein wasn't in the room the first year. He started a year or two late. And that was it for the first year.
Mm-hmm. Um, were your day, when did you start school time, the time of school?
Our school on the farm, or out there, always started on the, as close around the middle of October as at that, so it was a Monday, you know, and quit around the 15th of April again on a Friday. So we only had 7 months of school, yeah. And town, we had 9
What
months.
you got in your mouth?
Here's the house that Grandpa moved into in August of 1947. Grandpa John. And they used to have a great big garden out back that they would, my grandpa was a great big farmer. It kept them going. Oh, here's. And here's the front of the house. The front porch. Side of the other side of the house. And this is the back alley where most of the grandchildren would ride their tricycles up and down that my grandparents had. There used to not be a lot of traffic on this road until they switched the main road back here. They moved it over and tore up the road out by their house. And now there's lots of traffic that comes by. And there's a golf course across the street, so they like to come out and collect the golf balls that come across the street into their yard. So this is the house that Grandpa John moved into with his 3 kids in 1947. It didn't have running water or a refrigerator. They had to pump water from the basement into the house. And we'll go into the house. Here we are into the kitchen.
Well, Bob, I reckon all my lettuce will be safe now, thanks to you.
You think badgers are clever trusty, Bob?
I hope so. I tell you what, why don't you come back tonight and we can see for ourselves? That's a great idea, Barnacle.
Or we'll go upstairs. Where his 3 children shared a space. Try to imagine having 3 kids in this tiny space. Nowadays, most of our living rooms are this size. It's now become like his wife's quilting room, sewing room, and our guest room. So when the grandchildren come to stay, like when I used to come to visit, my brother spent many of summers here for about a week or two out of the summer. I couldn't imagine sharing this space with my brother for years. I will go back down to the kitchen. There's his
Junk mail.
there's his wife. Helen.
Junk mail.
And we'll walk into the bathroom. I don't know if you can. Having 5 people share this little bathroom. A lot of days, nowadays we have 2 or 3 different bathrooms for 5 people that are twice this size.
Damp rot is what happens when water gets into your floorboards and they don't dry out thoroughly. If we don't fix it soon, it can spread all over your house. Well, my damp meter says it's already spread to your stairs. Oh, really?
Walking to where my son, his Grandpa John's wife, Helen, and my
we'll have to put some
Grandpa
smelly stuff
John.
on the floor.
That won't do my allergy any good.
I'm
are
afraid it won't be very good for Hamish either. You should really both go away
headed
for the
into
day.
their
Oh, I could
entryway.
My sister, Faye. But Hamish won't be able to come. She finds Hamish a bit of a handful.
And this house is great for 2 people,
I'm pretty sure we can find someone to look after him.
but I couldn't imagine myself, growing up in the era I grew up in,
See you later.
sharing this house with 5 people. Here's their
So you see, JJ, Hamish
bedroom.
needs a place to stay.
Well, I'm afraid I can't help you there, Bob. There's a big delivery coming in. I'll be busy all day. Excuse me, Molly, did you say something?
Yeah, Hamish could come and stay with us.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I could look after him.
Oh, well, all right then. As long as he doesn't get in the way.
Yay, you're the greatest.
What about
Head
that
back.
dumpster?
Okay, Dad. Ready, Skip?
And we'll go downstairs.
Oh, yeah, ready, Molly. I have to pick up the damn grooming equipment. See you later, JJ.
Here's I'll show you this. It's a little hard for my grandpa to get up and down the steps, so I'll just kind of show you where his tool space is. This is where he keeps a lot of his tools if they're not outside in his shed. You see these? His wife worked for Cloverdale Meats, and you can see it says smoked sausage containers, powdered. Here, pick. I guess some big containers that they had at Cloverdale. And then some of the really neat tools that he has. They're really heavy tools. There's one of them. This wrench, we can't imagine using a wrench, or I can't anyway, every day for big heavy tools, using these big heavy tools and stuff. And then go ahead over, there's some of the old toys that I used to play with when I come visit Grandpa. Stuff. Don't really throw away much of anything. We've had to clean out a lot of things from the basement, but like his wife's old sewing machine. Abbott Meat Store and Smoked House Towner, Abbott, Iowa. Don't think they're running anymore. But it's just kind of neat to go through this stuff. One time my brother was down here. I don't know what he was doing, rummaging or I don't know. He came up with a really old hat, almost like a little mobster hat of my grandpa's, of John's, that he had when he was about my brother's age. When he was about 20, it was black hat. I don't know. He said my brother could take it home, so I don't know what come of it, but if you were to go through some of these boxes, I don't know what kind of neat stuff you'd find down here, but anyway, that's their house. A lot of us have apartments this size. Imagine this being your house for 5 people. But
Are you all right, Mr. Fothergill?
anyway, so we're back in the kitchen. This is the town of Hebron, where Grandpa John grew up coming to. This is the brick plant. Oh, that window's. Let's see out that window too. Can you roll that window down? Oh. Okay. Can you read it? Read it to me.
Anton's there. Yeah, get it? That means born September 1st, 1869. Yes, or died September 29th, 1908. And then there's their son, Casper,
Oh.
was born September 2nd, 1902, died February 1st, 1906.
And Anton Thayer is
Would be Grandpa's uncle by marriage.
his dad's sister's brother.
Right.
Or his dad's sister's husband.
Husband.
Yeah.
Husband.
Huh? And then their child. If he's buried, it's his wife.
I don't think Grandpa's. I think that house is here.
It's the other side of downtown. The law officer. I don't know. Repair shop now. This used to be the hospital. Not clinic. So how exciting for Xander, huh? His first time to the grave site, and he's good. This is Aunt Anna, Grandpa's sister's house. Now we're at the cemetery where my Grandpa John's parents are buried. They're there. There they are. says Rosina, born January 26th, 1876, died October 3rd, 1993.
1932.
32. And John the Second, born January 5th, 1872, died October 27th, 1940.
That's it.
Martin and Anna Mago, September 20th, 1896 to October 15th, 1982. And Anna was September 20th, 1907 to May 8th, 1993. And this is their son, Michael, September 26th, 1951 to December 17th, 1994, and he died in Honolulu. This is the town of Hebron, where Grandpa John grew up. Not a lot going on today, anyway, in the town. Guess the third person we have seen in town so far.
I think it's only one page that thick here. Wait a minute. Well, that's this one that made strong. I love you as high as I can reach. Said a little nut brown hair. I love you as high as I can reach. Said neck brown hair. This is very high. Got little or nut brown hair. I wish I had arms like that. Mm-hmm. And little nut brown hair had a good idea. He tumbled upside down and reached up the tree trunk with his feet. I love you all the way up to my toes, he said. And I love you all the way up to your toes, said big nut brown hair, throwing him up over his head. I love you as high as I can hop, laughed little brown hair, springing up, bouncing up and down. Well, I love you as high as can hop, smiled big nut brown hair. And he hopped so high that his ears touched the branches above. That's good hopping, thought little nut brown hair. I wish I could hop like that. I love you all the way down the lane as far as the river, said little nut brown hair. I love you across the river and over the hills. Sits big nuts around here. That's very far, so little around here. You're almost too sleepy to think anymore. Then he looked beyond Thorpe pushes out into the dark night. Nothing could be further away than the sky. That's made purposely to with thick pages so they can't bend them, you know. I love you right up to the moon, he said, and closed his eyes. Oh, that's far, said Big Nut on here. That is very far. Big Nut Brown Hair said a little Nut Brown Hair into his bed of leaves. He leaned over and kissed him good night. Then he lay down close by and whispered with a smile, I love you up, right up to the moon and back. End of the story. Oh, here. More than 12 million. What makes them shoes flash and spark like that?
So you got lights in your shoes. Who's holding you, Xander? Is it Grandpa John? Is it Great Grandpa John? You give Great Grandpa John a hug? When you're in school, did you have to work a lot on the farm? Did you have to work a lot on the farm?
When you were in school, did you have to work on the farm?
Oh yeah, I have to do chores, yeah.
What kind of chores?
Well, milk, feed chickens, slop the holes, gather the eggs, and what else was there to do? Feed the cattle, and yeah, I said slop the holes. And that's about the size of it. Then by that time supper was ready, and we ate supper. Then after supper we done other things in the house, played cards sometimes, and I was mostly reading. The rest of them played cards a lot. In the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime there was no time to play cards. By the time they would come in, working in the field, it was dark. Sometimes by the time you got the cow's milk, the milk separated from the cream, and all the other chores, like the hogs, the chickens, the eggs, it was late, you know. And you ate supper, and by the time you had supper, it was sometimes 9, 10 o'clock, time to go to bed. But in the wintertime, when the days were short and the nights were long, then there was this time. You didn't work in the fields neither, you know. You done chores and that's about it. Well, a few other things, if it wasn't too cold, you know, the weather.
Mm-hmm.
When it was cold, like 20 below, 30 below, you only done what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went back to the stove.
Did you get paid to work on the farm, or
See?
did you get paid from your
No.
dad?
No,
Or was it just...
not a penny.
You never got an allowance or anything? An allowance?
No, that wasn't the style that time. not in our house. Herman's, his sister Esther got the allowance. She was the youngest one, I guess the ones before her probably didn't get nothing either. By the time Esther came along, they were a little better fixed, you know, so they could afford to give her. Yeah, he said what she got a week too. I think she got 25 cents a week.
That was your neighbors or friend? Your friend?
No, he
Neighbor?
didn't get nothing either, no.
These are your neighbors, though. This Esther. Is Esther your neighbor, or who is this person you're talking about?
Oh, say that again. I can't understand you.
The person you're talking about, Esther, a friend?
Esther, oh, Herman's sister.
Oh.
Herman Wood's sister.
Oh, Herman Wood.
She was the youngest one in the family.
Mm-hmm.
She got an allowance.
Did you, when you were growing up, did you ever get in fights at school or at home?
Not badly, no. Not like some families. Boy, some families, they got into it sometimes. No, we had a little argument sometimes with our mother, you know. She squelled all that, you know. Or how do you say it? Yeah. She made peace.
When was the first time you tried cigarettes or chewing tobacco or alcohol?
Yeah, in school. Don't mention it. Don't mention school.
What? What about?
What we done was, there was a barn for horses. So there were some bigger boys, you know. They smoked behind the barn. And I was a little guy and another little guy. We stood at the corners and lookouts, you know. So when the teacher would come our way to get coal, we got the janitor too, you know. And so then we warned the boys, you know, and then they made their cigarettes out and threw them away. And then for that we got 2 or 3 puffs from the cigarette. And I kind of liked that, you know.
How old were you?
Oh, I was maybe like 7, 8, yeah. Yeah, and we got 2 or 3 puffs, and I started to like this. And from then on I started smoking, but not before my parents yet, on a sneak, you know. I would take tobacco out of my older brother's can, you know, and learn to roll cigarettes, and then I'd smoke behind everybody's back, you know, except my brother. He didn't say nothing good.
Which brother?
Huh?
Which brother?
Fred. He was 14 years older than I was. I didn't smoke before my dad till I was about 17 years old, and he caught me at it. I was smoking in the aisle of the barn, and there he was, you know. And I couldn't do away with that cigarette. I didn't hear him come.
Jessica, sleepy?
And then he said to me, okay, you can smoke, but be careful. Don't smoke where there's a hay, you know. And from then on, at first I was still kind of hesitant to smoke before him, you know. But after a while, a little while and on, some days or weeks, and then I smoked in front of him ever since I was about 17. We all smoked except our mother. I remember Ma saying one time, the weather was so unruly one day, and then we were in the house, 4 of us, Dad, Fred, Frank, and I, and we all 4 smoked, you know. And it was during that time when we had meat smoking in the smokehouse, and I remember our mother said, I think we can get the meat in here. You making enough smoke to smoke the meat in here. I remember that well. And I smoked ever since. I smoked cigarettes. Rolled my own, you know, for many years. Then I started smoking tailor-mades. I didn't smoke them so very long. They just didn't agree with me. I smoked them a few years, and then I here, I think I haven't smoked Taylor Mates for 15, 20 years already. But I did smoke a pipe now and then, and cigars. I smoked a cigar now and then. And finally, I haven't smoked a pipe or cigar for quite a while too, really. A cigar I would say I haven't smoked in a year, and a pipe I haven't smoked. I've got one that's laying here. I haven't smoked this pipe, I think, in 2 or 3 years already. It just doesn't seem to, like, start off from it. Nor you roll your own, you know. We smoked Velvet tobacco, the brand name Velvet, and Prince Albert. Prince Albert was a little stronger when he smoked it. I suppose it had more nicotine in it, I don't know.
When did you meet Grandma?
Huh?
When did you meet Grandma for the first time?
Oh, that was in Grandma.
Do you remember?
That was about in, I'd say 34. 34. They had a church fair, what they called Haymarsh put up a church fair on St. Clement's. That was the church's name, you know. They named that after the first settler there, a man by the name of Clements Wary.
Mm-hmm.
So when that day came around, it usually was on a Sunday. It might have been maybe a day or two off sometimes. I don't know when. And that church was, what did they call that? Can't think of it now. But it was always on a Sunday. Or near around that time, you know, as they could. They had doings there. You could play even bowl, you know. And they had prizes they gave away, a wheel, you know. You could win things. And food. They had a big dinner, you know. Yeah. And that's where I met her. She was a waitress. She was waiting on tables at that doing, you know. And that's evolved into, I can't even tell you how. But we met and afterwards, and so that's evolved into something, you know, romance. And into marriage eventually, yeah.
How long after you dated her did you ask her to marry you? How long after you dated her did you ask her to marry?
About 2 years, yeah.
And how did you ask her to marry you?
How I did it? I didn't much around much, fool around much. I just asked her right point blank, will you marry me?
Did you ask her dad first?
Huh?
Did you ask her dad first for her hand?
Well, no, I did not first. I think she asked her folks, and then after I probably asked her folks, and they said, okay, yeah, it's all right, yeah. She can marry you.
And when did you get married then?
That was in 36 on the 27th of July.
And how was the ceremony?
Then I would step on the first rung, lift it up another rung, and that's how I worked it out there. Or if there was 2 of us, one would lift it up like first the second rung, and then the one on top would grab it by the handle and pull it up. A cream can wasn't all that heavy, you know. Cream was not like water, you know, lighter. So one time, cream brought during the First World War, our folks got one for 3 cans of cream, 2 10s and an 8. They got $51 or $52. And then the cream went, after the war, things went down. Oh, we sold A lot of cream. The first batch of milk cows you had to give a lot of milk. And then our dad bought a Hereford bull, and then that offspring of their, they weren't much for milk anymore.
How much was milk?
What?
How much was milk when you sold it to
How
town?
much was milk?
Oh, we sold cream, not milk.
Oh, not milk.
I don't know how to figure this way. By you sold by pound, they tested this cream, and you had so many pounds of butterfat. But I can't tell you what the poundage is if I could figure that out. But the cream bought about $1 later on after the war. Brought about $1 a gallon. So you hauled in 28 gallons, you got about 28 bucks. Well, it was enough to buy the groceries and even some work shoes, work shirts.
How much was a pair of shoes? Do you know how much a pair of shoes were, or a shirt, or
Oh, yes.
pants?
Ma bought us shoes when Frank and I were kids. They cost $1.50. They looked like this. They weren't a very good shoe, but she figured, what the heck, us kids wear them out anyway, even if you... man's work shoes was about $2.50 or $3. A better quality shoe. Shoes Ma bought it for us. They had the rough side out. They looked like this. There was such a strip on here. Leather laid on here like this. They were brown in color. That's the only color they were. There was no other color. $1.50. Overalls, I don't know, I don't remember. A work shirt like 50 cents, 75. Pair of overalls, maybe 98 cents. No. You could get a lot for that cream, check you. You hold $28 worth of cream in there. You could buy quite a bit of stuff.
What's your favorite food that you liked when you were a kid?
Hmm?
Your favorite food your mom made as a kid?
Your favorite food when you were a kid? What your mother made? Soup.
Oh, a lot of soup. Chicken and beef. Now, every Sunday. That was her rhythm. And Sundays, you knew we had soup, either chicken or beef. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and now and then bean soup, too. Yeah. And this.
Paprika.
And paprikash and sometimes goulash.
What is that?
That was a kind of like a stew, goulash was. Paprika was thinner, but it tasted a lot like goulash, you know. And there's another kind of soup she made with, what?
Potato soup
Yeah, she made potato soup.
or bean soup.
And bean soup, but not often. And this other soup, what you can buy it in the restaurant, what do they call it again? That's so famous.
Well, beef soup.
No, in the restaurant we buy it sometimes. It's got the knedels in there.
I don't
What
know.
is that called?
Nefla? No. Nefla soup?
Knepsa.
Yeah, say that again.
Knepsa.
There you are, knedel soup. Yeah. Yeah. We order that sometimes when we're eating in a restaurant. We haven't eaten during the rest of the year, in a year, I guess. Yeah.
What nationality are you?
German.
I'm not quite all German.
Yeah.
I'm part Romanian too. My grandmother from my father's side was a Romanian. Her maiden name was Koska.
Just a minute.
Grandparents on my mother's side were German,
German.
both. My grandmother's name from my father's mother's side was Kramer, and my grandfather, of course, he was Fishbach. Yeah. So I got some Romanian in this. That's the good stuff in My dad's parents had died early. Dad was only 7 or 8, and his sister was maybe 6 or so. She was 2 years younger. Oh!
How was it living during the Depression?
How was it living during the Depression? How was it living when the Depression was?
Not high off the hog, I can tell you. Poorly. Yeah. We didn't fare so good, but we didn't starve either.
Well,
Yeah.
we had a big garden
Yeah.
and things like that.
There's a lot of things you couldn't afford, you know, like buying fancy stuff, you know. We ate mostly what we raised on the farm. Potatoes, pork, chicken, and
Beef.
beef now and then, yeah. And there was no money to buy a
Garden,
lot
yeah, and
of
gardens.
groceries then. Like pies and cakes and pizzas and cake and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't afford that. So we ate. So we ate what we raised mostly.
Mm-hmm. Which wars were you born? Did you live through? Which wars?
I was born right when the first war started in Europe. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it started in Europe in 1914 on the 6th of April, I
Mhm.
think it was.
Mhm.
And of course, when the Second World War came along, I was already farming.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was born during the Civil First World War.
Oh, did you fall off?
What did you think of the wars? What were your?
I don't know, I was too small yet to give it a thought.
Mhm.
I thought very few times of that, and very little of it.
Mhm.
I don't understand this war, let alone then, you know.
Yeah.
I can't figure out what the hell's going on over there. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know, or am I crazy?
Did you know anyone in any wars that went over?
Do I know that anyone that was in the first war? Oh yeah. Yes, there's our neighbors. I know several. There's
Oh. Okay.
Freddie Welk, John Flemmer, Chris Flemmer, and another John Flemmer from Charlie Flemmer's brother. And I know more of them. I can't think of them now.
Oh.
But
What
them guys I knew.
They were all in World War One.
Huh?
They were in World War One.
In World War One, were they in World War One?
They were in World War One. Yeah.
Did you know
They
anyone?
came back alive, you know.
Did you
And then there
know?
were some that didn't come back, and I can't think
Okay.
of them now off the top of my head.
Anyone in World War II that you knew? Did you know anyone in World War II?
Oh yeah,
You're gonna fall. You're gonna fall.
there was,
Paul Wilhelm.
oh, not in the second World War. Fireline,
Oh.
yeah. Mike Fireline and Joe Fireline and some of the Sherados, what were their names? And,
No.
I wish I could think. I can show you in a book who was in the Second World War.
Okay.
Huh?
Sure. A book of?
Don't know. Hebron Herald hasn't got a meaning, or has it?
I don't know.
So this is your book of Hebron, where you grew up?
Glen Ellen.
Oh, Glen Ellen?
Here, he got into, or he got it crippled. And he's got this shrapnel in his hand.
Which one? Who?
This one. This one right here. That's Paul Wilson. But where the heck is this? World War One, World War Two. I can't tell you who I knew here.
So these are all the names of the people?
Oh. Okay, World War One. Dr. Benson. I knew him a little bit. Joe Gower, I knew him. That's the first World War.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Brewer, he was a dentist. I knew him. And Adam Hoss, I knew him. Wallace Horst, August Kenishitsky.
Did any of them die?
They were in the First World War.
Did any of those guys die, deceased in the war? Did any of them die?
These guys all came back. The dead ones, it mentioned them too.
Okay.
Or maybe in the other book.
Oh, okay.
Ben Miller, they came back.
Mm-hmm. What about the Vietnam War? You're talking.
I wonder, are they in here or aren't they?
Did you know anyone in the Vietnam?
Vietnam. Yeah, they're in.
I know. Did
Yeah.
you?
Let's see if I know any of them.
Weren't your kid?
Let's go to Second World War.
Weren't your kids in the Vietnam War? Two weren't
Second World War?
in Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Your kids were in the Vietnam.
Let's see if I know any of these.
Weren't your two sons in Vietnam? Your two sons, weren't they in the Vietnam?
They were over there. I think they were in this other Korean War. In the Korean War.
Roger?
Roger and Chuck. Yeah, they were over.
Uh-huh.
But
When-
they weren't in the fire, you know. They were just
What did they...
more like keeping order or whatever you call that.
When did they go? Do you remember when they went over there? And how long?
From the Vietnam. Well, here, John Philibek,
Oh.
Thomas Keck,
Okay.
Aaron Geetson, Arnold Geetson. Mike Cottery, Robert Cottery, Eugene Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it there.
How long were your sons over in Vietnam?
They were, I think, over a year over there, yeah. I can't rightly remember. I'm pretty sure it was over a year.
Uh-huh.
Then, of course, Second World War, oh boy, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's okay.
Carl Gerber. Frank Byerline, Joe Byerline, Mike Byerline, Bill Byerline. Those were four brothers.
Wow.
Carl Bergish, Joe Bergish, John Bergish, Matt Bergish, I knew them.
Yeah.
And there was also Brown, what was his name? Louis Gower. I know Carl Gerber.
Did you go to any dances when you were a kid? Did you go up to the any dances and stuff?
We went to dances.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And
Quite a bit.
What kind of music did you listen to?
Usually accordion. Usually we were barn dances. Sometimes we went to a town dance too. Then they had an orchestra. Accordion usually was one of the players, one of the musicians. He played accordion, and a saxophone, and a violin, and sometimes a guitar, you know, and one of these things, trombone, yeah, and sometimes a piano, yeah. Yeah, we went to quite a few dances. Victor Sebastian, I knew him.
Mm. Who was your best friend growing up? Did you have a best friend?
No, I don't have many friends. Well, one I always thought was a good friend was Arthur Johnson. I thought he was a good friend. And the rest, they were all my enemies. I could say, I think Art Johnson was a friend. He was over there quite a bit.
In the war?
Huh?
In the war, you mean?
He wasn't in the war,
No.
as far as I know.
Oh.
I thought it said the ones that they didn't come back. Oh, here they are. World War deceased. Yeah.
And this is the book of Hebron, where you grew up? Where you grew up. This is Hebron?
I can't. Oh, well.
Yeah.
People I grew up with, sure, I can remember them. Paid $30 for that book. Yeah, expensive. I bought it in the 27th of October in '92. That's 14 years ago. I don't know if they have a list here or don't have a list.
A list of the people that were in World War I, II, and...
I went to this school here. But then there was an extension on there already. Once I was in this room in the 6th grade, and in the 5th grade I was over there. That I remember.
Right. Are you in there?
Hmm?
Are you in that book? Are you in that book somewhere?
Hmm?
Is your picture in there?
The what? Yeah. In 21 that was taken from my second teacher. Here's what it looked like when I went to school. That extension of it. The first year we lived in town I was in this room. The second year in this room. Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember my classmates.
Mm-hmm. When was that taken?
Hmm?
When was that picture taken?
That's me. That's Anna, that's Fred, that's Frank, and that's our parents here.
You said this in 1920?
My second teacher took that picture. I remember the day. I even followed her. She went over the creek on the hill over southeast, so she had the sun on her back, you know. And she took that. That was just the week before school let out. On a Sunday morning. I was 7. Frank was 5, Fred was 21, Anna was 15. Dad was 49. Ma was 4 years younger. 40,
Can you read that?
46, no, wait a minute. 4 from 49. 45.
Can you read this passage? Can you read that?
John arrived in Hebron in 1904 and worked for Northern Pacific Railroad. In 1906, he returned to Hungary to get his wife and children. Mary, Rose, and Fred, when they got to their embarkation point, the girls were not allowed to. Well, Rose had stigmatism, so they wouldn't let her through customs on the ship because some type of eye problem. So they had to be sent back. Only one son, Fred, was allowed to go. 3 years later, the girls were allowed to come. That was 4 years later, in Levin. John was a professional blacksmith in Hungary and found work then after the railroad with Charlie Waymeyer, that's correct, for whom he worked until 1910 when he took up a homestead in Mercer County where he lived until his death. A daughter, Anna, and sons John and Frank were born here. Anna is Mrs. Martin Nagel and lives in Hebron. John resides in Mainland and Frank lives in Bismarck. He will be remembered as a local plumber. Fred died in 1955, and that's a mistake too. And he died in 56, and Mary in 1920, that's correct. And Rose lives in Lockport, New York, and Mrs. Klein died in 1932, that's correct too, yeah. There's a few mistakes in here. I know they're mistakes. By a year, I must have put that into Anna, maybe I guess she couldn't remember anymore. That's it.
Did you go to church every Sunday?
To church, when we lived on the farm, not often. Until we had a car once. As long as we didn't have a car, we went seldom. We only went to church when we happened to be in Hebron visiting our aunt, you know.
Aunt.
Or Aunt Anna, Mrs. Terry, yeah. But when we had a car once, then we went oftener. Not every Sunday, but I suppose it maybe like a dozen times in a year, you know. Yeah.
You went into the Catholic church?
Catholic, yeah.
Do you know the name of the church? Do you remember the name of the church that you went to?
Yeah, we went there too sometimes. In later years, Helen and I, we went more to the Cambridge church than the Hebron church. It was a lot closer too.
Mm-hmm.
We became parishioners, members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you married in that same church? Is that where you're
In
married?
the Amherst church, yeah. You know, about a month after we were married, and there were a month and a half. But what a coincidence. You can call it that. Church burned down. Yeah. I think somebody was careless with the furnace or something. I don't know. There was no electricity yet. So it couldn't have been faulty wiring, you know. Must have been the furnace. That's the only thing I can think of. Somebody must have been careless. The janitor. And they built a new one. A year or two later. And that's still standing today. And it's vacant. Nobody goes there anymore.
What was your most memorable time growing up?
We were a member of the,
What was your most memorable? One thing you remember growing up that you really liked? Do you have something
nothing
special?
extraordinary, out of the ordinary. I can't remember nothing.
Something like your mom did or your brother did that was...
Nobody got broken legs or pneumonia or flu. We were all pretty healthy, you know. No, I can't remember ever having a doctor as long as I grew up. My doctor came when after I lived in Mandan here. Yeah. Whoa, wait. I went to the Dr. Hetzler once when we still lived at the far. That was in '39. I had stomach trouble, so he took X-ray. I had stomach ulcers. And later on, I was in the hospital several times. I had surgeries, I had gallbladder removal, I had prostate surgery, and what else? Oh, once they pulled my whiskers out, my beard out. I had some kind of scab on here, and then they gave me something to put on there, you know. And that healed it up. And I was in several times. One time I got sick playing cards here. That's when Tom was over here in Barbara. And then Tom said, "By golly, should I take you to the hospital?" I said, "I think you ought to." So he took me up there. I was there overnight, and then this thing got better. Yeah. Then I was in St. Alexis when I had that. No, when I had that gallbladder surgery, I was in the other hospital, Medicenter 1, I think they called it. And I was over in the St. Alexis hospital too. Oh, I can't even remember what. I was in there 2 or 3 times, once in the other hospital, once or twice in the Mandan hospital. I must have been in the hospital 4 or 5 times, I guess, yeah. Luckily, it was never nothing, you know, too serious.
Do you know one thing? Can you think of one thing that you've done to keep yourself alive this long, keep yourself going? What can you say contributed to you living this long?
Say that slow and loud.
One thing that contributed to you living this long.
Contributes to living in town.
Living this long, living till you're 92.
Longevity?
Yep.
That contributed to it?
Yep.
Well, what could I say? I think after I moved to town, I didn't work a heck of a lot anymore. No. I think a lot of rest. I think you could say that. I didn't, exert myself much anymore. And I had enough to eat always, so I think the rest, I would say that contributed to my longevity.
What do you think didn't? What do you think hindered your life? One thing that you wish you didn't do as a kid or as growing up.
One thing I didn't do.
That you wished you didn't do.
I wish I didn't do. There might be a lot of things, little things, you know.
Just one thing. Can you think of one thing that you wished you didn't?
I went there with some other guys stealing some pigeon feet one time. That bothers me. Oh, I'm telling you. We went to the mill. That one boy lived close to the mill. He knew his ins and outs from around that mill, you know. And his cousins, they had pigeons, but no feed and no money either. So outside, we just had come out of church. We're standing on the sidewalk, and then Mike told his cousin, "We can get you some feed. We'll crawl in the mill." And I was standing with him, and he said, Mike said to me, "You won't say nothing, will you?" I said, "No." So we went. We used my little coaster wagon. Went to the mill, and then we couldn't get to the good stuff that was locked up with the lock on it. So we took screenings, wild oats and pigeon grass and mustard and a few cracked kernels of wheat, and that's maybe 30, 40 pounds. And we loaded that on my wagon, and then the highway came in from the straight western town, and when they beamed their lights right into the window where I thought now we're caught. And not only that, then we took that coaster and went by a house, and the lady, there was a street light right there at the corner, and the lady was standing and looking out the window, and the house was on foundation, and she kind of looked down and seen us go by with that stuff, and I said, I almost fell over. I thought, now we're in trouble. But what the heck did that lady know what we got in that bag there, in the burlap bag, So that night, believe it or not, I went to church again. The Holy Rollers had a conference, and everybody went, They were curious people. I went and I sat up there in the balcony. They had a balcony. It was a warehouse one time. And the preacher, he was a good orator. He preached fire and brimstone, He condemned the sinners. I sat up there and another guy sat up, and we both hung our heads. We felt lower than snakes. And I was sorry after that forever. If that's what it takes, what you get for stealing, I don't want none of it. My mother sent me to the store to buy something, and the owner of the store was down in the basement. I could hear him rummaging around, and I picked up one of these dried fruits, or them sticky ones, I don't know what they call, and I laid it back down again. Yeah, my stomach just wouldn't allow it. No, I've never stolen anything since in my life. It's not my nature to do that. I get no bang out of that. All I do is suffer. My conscience bothers me, and my stomach too.
Did you get caught doing that?
See?
Did you ever get caught?
No, we never caught. Oh, we were a bunch of dummies. If we'd have went to the mill people and asked them, they'd have gave us more than we stole that night for nothing, But that's what you do when you're a kid sometimes. No brains,
What was the most when you were a kid, or what was the one fun thing that you did as a family when you were a kid, growing up?
Well,
The one.
we were kind of close, We worked together pretty good. Everybody knew what his job was, and we spent most of our time together, in the house and on the farm. We, like I said, I used to read a lot. I started reading when I was 9 years old. Somebody left a big paper there one time. It was either Minneapolis something or another, or Chicago. It was a big heavy paper. And they were on, or the New York, whatever. And they were on the story in there, The Hounds of the Baskervilles. And I started reading that. And I was in 23. And I got absorbed in that story. And some kid, this took place in the Appalachian Mountains on the east side of the country. And he got always kind of froze when he heard them dogs up there barking and and making a ruckus, you know. I got absorbed in that story, and I kept on reading. I read the whole story, and from then on I started reading stories. Not everybody in our family read stories. Anna, our dad, Anna, and I, we read stories. And Fred and Mo and Frank, they didn't read stories. They read the newspaper, but they didn't read, stories,
What's your favorite stories to read?
Oh, I like westerns. Yeah, I read a lot of them, or did, yeah. In fact, I finished a book right here the other day. I gave it to Rosemary. Herman gave me that one. I thought he wanted it back, so I gave it to Rosemary to take back. I like westerns. I used to read them detective stories 2 years ago. I got a book once from my sister for Christmas present. Cost 69 cents. The Canary murder case that took place in New York City. And it wasn't true, it was fiction. But I got absorbed in that, and I read that whole book. And I read them in police magazines too. You could get, I think you probably still, true police stories, I think you still get it. I used to like to read. Oh, and I read, my sister used to bring me them true story magazines. Those were about romance, love and stuff. I read them. That's about it, yeah. Oh, in school I liked geography pretty well, and history. I done pretty fair in them, yeah. One subject I was stupid in was grammar. Like verbs, nouns, pronouns, verbs, and adverbs, and adjectives, and there was more. I couldn't get that stuff in my head. I must have been the dumbest one in the room. But the other subject, I wasn't so bad. Spelling, I was pretty good. Arithmetic was my best subject. Yeah, I've done pretty good in geography and history and spelling, arithmetic. And what else did we have? Penmanship, I was poor. We had to write, penmanship. My handwriting was never no good. Yeah. So it looked like somebody had too much beer, and tried to write. Kind of jiggly and wiggly all the time. I was no good at that.
When did you get your first television set? Your first television set?
First television set we got on the 22nd of February on Washington's birthday in '56. Yeah, that wasn't in color yet, I was a General Electric. What's a good outfit? That had tubes in it yet, And then tubes, of course, started wearing out and going dead. And I think I must have bought 50 tubes for that thing, I bought one or two, and then a day or two or a week later, another one was dead. And that kept on going. Finally, we got a second television. Which one was that? That was the one down in the basement. That wasn't color either. We bought that second-hand from Bill Fraley. I think we paid $90.